motion and I'm miles away. Somehow I feel like recently I found my way. Yeah.
Welcome back to the Zach Knows Podcast. I'm Zach Collins, and I had a rough weekend, to say the least. But let's get started. First, we'll start off with the PV basketball men's team. They played Winthrop. They won. They was winning in the first half, 34-32, and coming back towards the second half, they lost a 12-point game to Winthrop. Just another one of those not being able to finish, not understanding where they are as a team, still trying to find their way. Luckily, they play again today. I would call a lower level opponent in Hudson Tillotson, a team. I think it's an NAIA school, but just somebody to find their rhythm going into SWAC play with this being their first. I think it's at home. It's their first home game, but just for them to get their rhythm, to figure out who they are as a team, to figure out where they're going in SWAC play, how they're going to fare within it. Because if they look across their conference, it's a couple of teams, especially the team in Houston, that's beat, I would say, better, bigger opponents. So just for them to understand where they're going and what they have ahead of them, I would love to see them win. And not only just win, but do it convincingly. We found a couple sparks outside of Gary with addition for a couple JUCO kids. But I want to see more consistency. I want to see the ability to finish. And ultimately, I want to see us be what I thought we could be, which is a contender in the SWAC, and not just watch other schools win, which I'm sure that's how they felt about our season. But we had an early cutout. But anyway, back to just talking about the game. Well, upcoming game, what I want that to happen. Just basically, I want them to find their rhythm, be able to get their act together because, like I said, SWAC play is coming up, and we need to figure out where our momentum is coming from, or we're going to be looking on the sideline towards SWAC tournament time, towards the NCAA tournament time, which I think that's inevident anyway, but I just want to see the ability to fight because half of the team, I want to say, is young or JUCO, so they will be coming back, but for those seniors, they aren't trying to hear that. They're trying to win now. So that's just something I want to look forward to. Now, let's get into we had 3 days of bowls, which if I would have knew that they were all set up like that, I would have staggered the show and probably gave you a show Monday morning. But I was still reeling from the loss on Saturday, so we'll get into that. But we'll just go in order. First game of the day, you have Florida versus Michigan on Saturday in the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl. You could tell Michigan was really missing their star players such as Rashawn Gary, Devin Bush, and their starting running back was gone too. That just hurt their team in a sense of where they didn't match up physically or athletically on the outside. They tried to swing it towards the middle of the game after being down so much against Florida. But I just feel like they're at a point to where they're starting to look for answers within the Harbaugh era because they haven't beat Ohio State since he's been there. They haven't done the things that he said that he's done. He's took them across the world, but they haven't been able to do what they want to do. With Michigan being a blue blood program, their goal is national championship, and they haven't been to the playoff. They haven't done the necessary steps to get there. So I think that just shows the leadership doesn't believe in him, so they therefore didn't want to play with him any more longer than they felt like they had to. They want to look out for themselves. Even with that being like the heart and soul of their defense, Devin Bush, with him not being there, I felt like that is what ultimately hurt them, just being the fact that they were going against a heavy run-based team. Felipe not being a very, I would say, good quarterback. He's a solid college quarterback, but he definitely has his troubles. He definitely missed error throws. Like, he just didn't He just didn't strike me as an NFL quarterback. He didn't strike me as a quarterback that would pose much of a threat if Michigan's full defense was there. But they still ended up coming out on top. And that was our first game on Saturday. I picked that one right. Next, you got the Belk Bowl that nobody cares about. South Carolina just didn't come to play. It looked like South Carolina didn't want to be there. The offense didn't get off the bus. They didn't want to come. They didn't want to play. And you could see why they were 7-6. They just furthered that notion of not much offense being played, and apparently not much defense if they scored 28 points. But that was it was just It's one of those bowl games that we had, with the day being stacked full of them, and being such other high marquee matchups being on the day, that was just a bowl that just got lost in the wind because it is 40-plus games. So eventually I was going to miss one of them, and that was just one of them I didn't really care about. The closer game of the day, Arkansas State and Nevada towards the top of the day. With that game going into overtime, Arkansas State never really finding a rhythm. They didn't match up physically in the trenches, which played into Nevada's hands because they are a heavy run-based team. They like to eat up the clock. And with them having the ability to keep Arkansas State's explosive offense off the field, that helped them keep them in a low-scoring fashion. They weren't able to get their pass really going. Arkansas State, I had thought, would at least make it a better game, which it was a good game with it being going into overtime. But for one, like offensive games, I feel like they will be able to bring that spark and force the Nevada offense to score more than they usually do, and they didn't. And also, the Arizona Bowl just happens to find teams that either you really want to win, with Nevada really wanting to win, being they only won 3 games last year, and now they're trying to clinch a bowl, which they did, to Arkansas State, who's used to being in bowl games and understanding what's going on, and they just didn't want to be at that bowl, I felt like. And you find those type of games where they're just happy to be there. They're not really looking to win, like that's their goal, or they just don't care about the bowl in general. And I feel like Arkansas State just didn't really care about that bowl in general. And we're going to talk about other teams that didn't care about their bowl coming up. First playoff game of the day, you have Clemson and Notre Dame. Notre Dame shouldn't have been there. But if you look at the way Georgia played, the way Ohio State let Washington come back, Notre Dame being the only undefeated team, being the third undefeated team with Alabama and Clemson, you can see why they made it, but they didn't match up. Their offense was non-existent. They didn't get Williams into the game plan, I felt like, enough to have a successful time in that game. With Clemson having this high-powered offense with NFL receivers, with it subsequently being wide receiver, you have to be able to keep them off the field. They didn't get their running game going. Their quarterback wasn't able to get the 8 people out of the box. Their line couldn't block the 4 rushers that they brought. They weren't bringing many blitzes, and they weren't able to hold up protection for the quarterback. So it just looks like Notre Dame wasn't there. Brian Kelly, once again, lost in the game. I think he's like 0-7 in bowl games. He can get his team through there, and you would think if his teams are 13-0, 12-1, have records like that when he gets a month and a half to prepare, he would be able to skyrocket them and have them ready. But he doesn't seem to do it in bowl games. I feel like everybody has a crutch, and that would be his crutch, is the ability to win bowl games. Dabo Swinney does what he continued to do the last 4 years, is lead his team to a national championship. It obviously looks like he made the correct decision with benching Kelly Bryant in place of their freshman quarterback, who I told y'all before doesn't play like a freshman. He made some pretty good throws. And you can see the Peyton Manning influence within his game. He just looks like a more athletic Peyton Manning, which is a deadly combination, especially with him being 6'6", I just like the poise he played with. He doesn't really show that much emotion. And the speech he gave at the end of the game where he talks about his faith and that being a cornerstone with him being so successful is knowing who he is as a person and knowing he is what he is made of. And he's not fully based off football, and I liken that to myself because I understood that football isn't always going to be here. Football isn't the way that I want to live the rest of my life. I got a year left, and I don't even think I'm going to do it. But you could just see why that team is successful with the moves he made. You can understand that they're not built around one person with their defensive lineman being out of the game, and they probably had one of their more dominant performances. You can see why Clemson made it to the national championship because they do have these top recruiting classes. But who they're playing in the national championship, it's tough. Obviously, they're playing Alabama Crimson Tide. I was wrong. Oklahoma lost. Kyler Murray lost. Make your meme, Maul. Make it. But no. What happened in the game Saturday, I felt like we all know Oklahoma doesn't play defense. That's here nor there. We came into the game understanding that they weren't going to play any type of defense. We came into the game knowing that Kyler Murray was going to have to score every possession he touched the ball. Where they messed up is a couple of places. First quarter, Kyler Murray is pressing. When I say pressing, I mean he's trying to force the issue of scoring the ball, to try to make plays, holding the ball too long, not understanding that he has to get it out. This defense is coming. He understood that his defense wasn't going to help him. You could see when the camera panned and him on the sideline during each Alabama drive, his frustration showed. He wasn't able to hold it together. But he still had a Kyler Murray performance. 300 yards in the air, 100 yards on the ground, 3 total touchdowns. He played as well as he could with the circumstances against him. Their offensive line was fed up, just being the fact that they felt like they couldn't really get anything going, and they knew it was mainly because of them. I would say Marquise Brown didn't show up the way I wanted him to. Maybe that's due to his injury. Maybe it's just he wasn't prepared. I would lean more towards the injury just because I like him as a receiver, and I understand his love for the game. But the same way he wasn't ready to play, and once we put Charleston Rambo in the game and he made plays, was the same thing I was looking for the OC to do with Kennedy Brooks and Trey Sermon, because Trey Sermon would get 1 yard, 2 yards, but he would avoid contact. You could see a play where they ran outside zone to the left, and he can outrun the defensive tackle, but he's looking and just runs out of bounds on a key third down where we needed 3 yards to get a first, and all he has to do is take on contact and lean forward, and that's a first. It was many plays where I felt like Kyler didn't want to take on contact, but why would you at 5'9", 180, 190? And for him, I can understand he has a future. He understands what's going on, and he knows he has to stay in that game in order for OU to be in that game. He understood he couldn't really take as many hits as he was already taking just standing in the pocket. So I get his reasoning for it. But I seen some soft plays from everywhere else. The play where Josh Jacobs runs over Robert Barnes smiling, and Robert Barnes ends up hurt. It was a turning point in that game because with him being out, they didn't really want to put Bookie in. I feel like they don't feel like he's ready. So they put in this freshman safety number 10. And when I tell you that kid played with just reckless abandon, he didn't feel like, you could see he didn't really know how the magnitude of this moment. You could see like he was just playing, just happy to be out there. Because I'm going to tell you, I hadn't seen him on film this year. I hadn't watched him, and I may have missed 2 OU games all year just with that me being busy. But he didn't let the moment get too big for him, and I've been looking for somebody in the back end to be able to stand up, because the way our defense was set up is Norwood being our second corner, he got pushed to safety, and then that puts Motley, our third corner, outside. So that puts our defense in a conundrum, because Trey Norwood is probably 165 soaking wet, real skinny kid. But that's more of a Big 12 matchup. I understand Alabama has 4 NFL receivers, but their offense is still predicated off running the ball. So I still want more beef within the game. And I felt like with the Barnes injury, because I felt like he played timid, just understanding that he was the last line of defense, that he has to be able to get these people off the field. That's where I think his timidness came from. But like I said, one of the key things was 10 coming out of the 10 being able to show what he can do on a stage like that. He had a breakout game. Charleston Rambo had a breakout game. CeeDee Lamb played the way CeeDee Lamb does and showed why him and Marquise Brown were one of the best tandems this year. But credit where it's due. Alabama dominated within the trenches. Tua had a Tua-type game, although against the worst defense in the nation, especially the worst defense that was in the playoff. They were able to run the ball. Like I said, they did a 3-man rotation. And I felt like they had a point to prove in the fact of not only they say they didn't want to defend Tua winning the Heisman, but you can see they had a point to prove. But you can also see why Kyler Murray won the Heisman and why I felt like he had a chance to win. Because no matter how great this defense was, he was still able to do what he does. It wasn't in the way that he wanted to. He didn't score every possession like he needed to. He ultimately lost them the game, but it wasn't on his shoulders. I would blame coordinator, defensive players, whichever way you want to call it, the people that played, the people that called the game. I'm not blaming Kyler Murray for the loss. They played a better team that won in all 3 phases of the game. I didn't like the fact that Lincoln Riley did an onside kick with 8 minutes left to go. You put Alabama in that position. I think it's only a 21% rate of converting an onside kick in the NCAA. And I didn't see one successful onside kick in the bowl season the last 3 days of games, and maybe not even before that. But it showed you didn't believe in your defense that was finally in a rhythm of stopping Alabama. And then you have the little cocky quotes at the end of the game where Nick Saban says, they didn't stop us, we stopped ourselves. We proved this, and that. So you can see that there's animosity between the two conferences, between the two programs, with them both being upper echelon of teams and wanting to prove themselves. But you can also see why Alabama has set this standard. They bring in players every year, and they're going to continue to hold that standard up. And I can't be mad they won. They were just a better team. It was just the fandom in me thinking that probably the best player to ever play Texas high school football would beat Alabama. If they played at the Cotton Bowl, the game would have went totally different, but they can't put OU 2 hours away from their home field, so that's how that goes. Moving forward, Monday we had a couple of atrocious games, to say the least. I would say the best game started off, well, let me look. Yeah, probably the best game of the day was Cincinnati and Virginia Tech. The only one I had really got wrong. Well, no, I got a couple wrong. We'll talk about it. Cincinnati over Virginia Tech. Cincinnati got the lead up early and were able to hold off Virginia Tech towards the end. It was like a couple, like 5-point game, 38, 33 or something like that. But that was probably the most offense shown that day. Stanford and Pittsburgh gave you a snoozer of 14-13 where Stanford won. Michigan State, Oregon gave you 7-6. I was in I was sitting on the couch about to gouge my eyes out watching these offensive less performances. Like, but luckily we had Missouri and Oklahoma State, an old Big 12 game. Two offenses that I felt like would definitely give me what I needed as far as for a consumer of watching. They both had 30 plus points. Missouri almost came back. I felt like Missouri would be able to win that game just because their season has been mostly SEC driven with them being in the SEC, and I felt like their stoutness, their ability to deal with those teams, and to now come and play a Big 12 team, I thought they would be able to impose their will, and at times they could, but for the most part, Oklahoma State was Oklahoma State, and you could see why each year they send a receiver or two to the league, why their quarterback may get a seventh round look at the NFL. And that's just a testament to Coach Gundy, the type of players he produces, the type of game he puts on film for his kids. And I think more so me not picking him was just simply the Oklahoma State-Oklahoma rivalry. Did the same thing with Texas last night, but that's just me. Moving forward, Northwestern beats Utah. I thought Utah's defense would be able to hold them within the game, but the thing about good defense is that you have to learn is when you have a great defense, but your offense is subpar. The difference between a great defense and an all-time defense is an all-time defense scores. A great defense just stops them. So if a team has 10 possessions, a great defense is going to hold them to only getting 3 touchdowns. Because 3 out of 10, that's 30%. That's a solid day. But when your offense can't get anything going, you need an all-time defense to stop them in order for you to win. And I don't feel like Utah had that, and that's ultimately what cost Utah the game. Utah ended up losing. Moving on to the TaxSlayer Gator Bowl. Texas A&M versus NC State. Texas A&M, the running back Williams, he breaks Texas A&M all-time rushing record. He had probably a near 300-yard performance. His offensive line with the play of Eric McCoy and the rest of the other guys, saying Eric McCoy because I know him. He went to Ennis. I had went to Texas A&M my sophomore year. They just imposed their will. You could see the Jimbo effect on his team. They talk about it in post-game interviews, the way he changed the dynamic of that team. He brought a different mindset. They are starting to play with a different type of swagger. And they're not so 5 wide, throw the ball all around. One, because they don't have a quarterback that can do that in Kellen Mond. His accuracy, when he's not just standing straight up in the pocket, it definitely wavers at times. And for me, I love what he's doing. I feel like in order for them to take the next step, they're going to need, I would say, somebody to replace Williams, because I think Williams is going to the NFL. I think they need a true number 1 receiver on the outside. And maybe, I would say another DB, because they have one. They have a young nucleus of players that I feel like as they get along within their college career, they'll gradually get better. You got the Leon O'Neal kid who plays safety for them. They have a couple of linebackers from Dallas, like Buddy. And you can see the young core of this team growing together. And with them buying into Jimbo Fisher, I feel like within the next couple of years, they'll be able to vie for the SEC West, which is a tough task. But I think they have the ability to do so. I love that 6'7" receiver they got at 13. You can throw it anywhere in his catch radius, and he's going to make his point. And he came up live in it again towards the end of that game. And that was probably my biggest takeaway from that. It's just you can see what Williams is to that program. Williams being the running back, you can see the offensive line being able to impose their will in that SEC ACC matchup. I'll say that sidebar later. The SEC ACC matchup, you can see Texas A&M physicality finally coming together, finally getting out of their Big 12 ways and starting to impose their will more. Dominated performance by the offensive line right there. Now moving forward, we got the Outback Bowl. I had 2 losses yesterday. The Outback Bowl, Sugar Bowl. But Mississippi State, Iowa, Fitzgerald physicality and just want to at times, I feel like will get him far. Do I think he's an NFL quarterback? No. He's definitely not an NFL quarterback. He's a great value Tebow, and I don't think that's going to win, and that especially if he's not going to change his position. He might be what is that called? A tight end, fullback, that type of player in the NFL. But as far as playing quarterback in the NFL, he has no shot. But for the Outback Bowl, I just thought Mississippi State would be able to physically dominate Iowa. I felt like they definitely had better athletes, but Iowa came out on top. The thing about sports, especially football, is there's 2 things that can get you to a game. It can be technique or it can be athleticism. Mississippi State, athleticism. Iowa, technique and size. At the end of the game, when you're tired, when you haven't really been playing that long, when you haven't played in a long time, your technique is going to show through. And with Iowa being technicians, they were just able to hold on to that victory early in the day. And I felt like that was just an underwhelming performance by Mississippi State. Moving on, Kentucky State. Kentucky plays Penn State. Benny Snell caps off an amazing career where he turns around the University of Kentucky football program. His junior year, his last year, he leads his team to 10 victories. He breaks the all-time rushing record. He has the all-time record for most touchdowns rushing touchdowns at Kentucky. Him and Herschel Walker are the only SEC backs to have 3 1,000 seasons. So you can see just his impact on the team, and I liken that to where I want Dewanye to be able to go, because he is Kentucky through and through. Like that team, that school means everything to him. And you can see just the passion that he plays with, just the fire that he has inside of him. And I just feel that run that they've been on was made for him because of everything he's given to that program. He hasn't not been a playmaker since his 3rd game there. His first game there, he had 14 carries, over 100 yards, and 2 touchdowns. So he's been made for this moment. And then finally it just come to fruition with them winning this bowl, with the Citrus Bowl. You can see on the sideline whenever the defense needed a crucial stop, he's the one that came out of there and told them, like, hey, we need y'all to step up. We need this from y'all. And I love when a player like that is able to tap into his leadership, to able to grasp that whole team and tell them, let's get it together. Of course, Kentucky won that game. Next, you got the Fiesta Bowl. Finally, we can get over the UCF national championship thing. I've been getting killed for the last day and a half in my DMs about my position where I stand on UCF. I just don't think that they're in a conference that gives them the right to be in the playoff. They lost to a team who lost to the national championship 27-0. So if they lost to Alabama like that, if OU lost to Alabama like that, where do you think they're going to be? Hold up, yo. What do you think will happen if we go to an 18 playoff and they have to play Alabama first? Huh? 50-0 probably. Now, granted, McKenzie Milton is there. They're going to score on Alabama because offense just comes through eventually. But it's not going to be a good matchup. I don't see them really giving anybody a true test. Like I said, if they were in the SEC, they wouldn't be able to stand up to the competition. And that I'm going to stand on that as long as until they change their conference, until they schedule somebody on a 2-for-1, they need to just accept it. They're going to just same way Houston did, where Houston won a couple of bowl games. They beat FSU, but they got to understand, when these teams want to be there and they have a point to prove, like LSU wanted to shut UCF up, and they did. People look at the score, it was 40-32, and they think that game was that close, and it wasn't. The pick six taken away, it's 40-25. The time of possession, LSU dominated. They had 41 minutes. They had over 500 yards total offense, and LSU isn't even a dominating offense like that. Yes, this is probably one of LSU's best teams. They have the quarterback finally that they feel like they can lean on. Although these players weren't anywhere to be found in the Alabama game. And if we're going to hold UCF to this standard of not just being a good team, not just being somebody that compete in the Power 5 conference, somebody that wants to be a national champion, if they couldn't beat LSU, they have no chance against Georgia, against Alabama, against Oklahoma. It's not going to happen. They're not going to beat Clemson. They aren't good enough in the trenches. It's just that. No matter about your outside weapons, that can be, you can draw up schemes for players on the outside to make plays. But when them trenches line up and you're going to be dominated, you're not ready for it. You're not ready for it. You're not going to be able to last the whole season for it. Just same way Oklahoma wouldn't be able to last the whole season in the SEC. If this team went into the SEC, they wouldn't last for it. They probably wouldn't have made the playoff. Kyler would have a good season, but he wouldn't be where he was now. I get that. But Oklahoma is getting to the playoff. Oklahoma is scoring on this team. The same way I feel like Oklahoma put up 30 points against Bama, they'll beat LSU or beat Georgia. Alabama just has something that those teams don't have. Alabama has probably 8 players are going to the NFL. On defense, offense, that's just what's happening. Georgia may have 10 total, but that's the difference between 16 and 10. It's just a difference. And I don't see UCF being a viable contender if they were in a different conference. That's not going to happen. They're not going to the playoff. They won't get a bid until they change their conference. Or they schedule somebody in the first 3 weeks. They schedule Florida and manhandle Florida. No, they're not going to do it. So moving on, you have Ohio State and Washington. Ohio State imposed their will early, gets up, I want to say 28-3 or something. Something like that, where they had a 20-point lead. And almost gives it away. It got conservative towards the end of the game. It really looked like they just wanted to get Urban Meyer out of the game. This is Urban Meyer's finally win. I think he's had 81 victories, 9 losses, which is crazy. He's never lost to Michigan. He brought them a national title. To me, it goes Nick Saban, Urban Meyer. And it's really close. And at times, Urban Meyer's beat Nick Saban, and at times, Nick Saban's beat Urban Meyer. Those are the 2 best coaches that I've seen in this decade. This, I would say, my generation. Them 2 and Bob Stoops. But Bob Stoops, he only has 1 national title, so I hope that against him, especially with me being an OU fan. But yeah, they almost gave this game away. I love the fight Washington had towards the end of the game. This big senior class that's changed the way we look at Washington football. Peterson, the great coach, the one who beat Oklahoma in the Fiesta Bowl with the little Statue of Liberty pass, the Statue of Liberty, the hook and ladder, all of those plays. Very creative coach. But that's those 2 conferences, they just don't match up physically with the Big Ten and SEC, just because they play a different style of football. Ohio State is the only team that I feel like can play both styles of football because they can get physical and run the ball, and they can go four wide, spread offense, and let Dwayne Haskins just throw it. Do I think Dwayne Haskins is coming out? Yes, he's the number one quarterback now that Justin Herbert is done. Should this game hurt his stock? No. Like I said, they were just ready to get out of there. They thought Washington would lay down, but with that being a senior-laden team, with them bringing this team all the way that they have some type of fight. They've been here before. They understand in these games. They done went to these games and laid an egg against Alabama, so they didn't want to do that again. So you can see them coming back. But who laid an egg was the University of Georgia. The Jake Fromm that played last year in the playoff is missing. And if I'm Justin Fields, I'm leaving. Point blank period. I'm gone. Like, I don't want to be here. You watched this man lose us this game and didn't have the courage to bench him. So that means one or two things. Either you don't believe in me or you're bought in too much into him. And either way, that tells me it's my time to go. That's not an entitled look. That's not. And really, it's on Justin Fields because Justin Fields shouldn't have signed there. He didn't beat him out. That's why Tate Martell throwing little slick shots saying, don't make the wrong decision twice. Tate Martell is ready for Dwayne Haskins to leave, and I feel like Justin Fields is leaving. Do I want him to go to OU? It don't matter. I feel like Austin Kendall is going to be good. I feel like the number one dual threat quarterback we signed this year is going to be good. Weapons are always going to be there. I just want us to recruit defensive players, but we're not talking about OU. We're talking about Georgia and Texas. I finally remembered his name now that I watched him. Sam Ehlinger. No matter what I say about Texas, that kid got hard. It was one play on third down. It was at least 6 people that touched him, and they couldn't bring him down. He has that same type of makeup that I would like it to like Baker. They play different styles, but the feeling I get from watching him, the feeling I get that he gives his team is that same type of feeling Baker gives to their team. When he said Texas is back, that's his little swagger. That's what he does. In the same way when Baker beat Ohio State, he put the flag in their field. The thing about Sam is he just runs too much. And I feel like that's something you can do in college. It's not going to hurt him. I mean, he does get beat up in the season. He had a bad shoulder and stuff like that. But he's going to be able to make it college. Do I think he's going to be an NFL quarterback? No, not really. Last quarterback as physical as him was probably Tebow, and I would say he throws a little better than Tebow, but he's shorter than Tebow. So I don't see him being an NFL quarterback. But Georgia just didn't want to be there. They're the best running back in the country. Didn't show up. 2 fumbles. He didn't score to the last minute of the game. And it didn't seem like he was prepared to be there. You had the reports of them saying that they had the bench starters because they were acting like they didn't want to be there. They didn't come to the bowl game with the feeling of we need to win this game. And that's my biggest issue going from bowl game to bowl game is you never know who wants to play in that game and who is just there just to be there just because they feel like they have to. And that's a problem. Like, if you don't want to be there, sit out. If you're that mad about not making the playoff, then sit out. It don't mean that much to you. For them to do all this talking all weekend about Notre Dame and Oklahoma, and they lay an egg against Texas because of what? I don't know. That's on them, bro. And then, like, it's a want to in this game. Like, no matter what, if you don't go to the playoff, you still going to get this bowl ring. You still going to get this check, especially if you win. And that's a marquee matchup of you representing your conference, and they just don't care. It don't matter to them. And that's an issue I have. Like, if you're going to play in the game, you got to play like you there now. It's too late now. You here, bro. You got to come with it. And they didn't come with it. Texas imposed their will. Texas is one of the worst rushing teams in the nation, and they was physically dominating Georgia from the beginning to the end. Whatever they wanted to do. Lil Jordan Humphrey and the Colin Johnson, and they were nowhere to be found for the majority of the game because Texas was running the ball. And going into that game, it was the report of Tom Herman saying he saw deficiencies in Georgia's rushing attack. Or that was on offense. And hats off to their defensive coordinator. Because he done bottled up some people. He didn't bottle up Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray still got off. But the way he set that up, he game planned the heck out of their Red River rivalry. He bottled them up at a point. But he game planned excellent for this defense. Texas was prepared to play. This was a statement game for Texas, and Georgia didn't give a damn about what this game happened. And that's the issue. You find those games in bowl season. Sometimes people want to be there, sometimes they don't. Georgia didn't want to be in the Sugar Bowl. Georgia felt like they should have been at the Cotton Bowl, or they should have been at the Orange Bowl. But they weren't. That's how life goes. And now they give you a game and you don't want to take advantage of it? Nah, that's why I tweeted yesterday, playoffs. Y'all didn't deserve the playoffs. Because if we put them back in the playoffs, what's the point of playing the championship game? None at all. So, that's my bowl wrap-up. I had way more wins than I had losses. I'll tally that up and put that in the next game. Moving on to NFL news. I know my episode long. Y'all just going to have to bear with me. That's my fault. I waited too long, but it's my show, so I can make it as long as I want to do. Anyway, NFL news. Colts get it in because Marcus Mariota doesn't win that. Marcus Mariota isn't there. Colts are quietly on this roll. I don't know if they want to. I think depending on how far they go will tell me if they ended up signing Le'Veon Bell. I think if they have a first-round exit, I think it's clear they're going to go after Le'Veon Bell. But if they go second round, it'll be a question about keeping Mac because Mac has been balling. Or even going if they go to the championship. But I don't see that happening at all. I still would like, if they get Le'Veon Bell, they're a Super Bowl contender next year off top. They're a Super Bowl contender just because they have Andrew Luck. But now with Le'Veon Bell and T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, a quality offensive line, that is going to be a team to reckon with. Their defense is coming together. All those early picks, all these bad years they've had because Luck's been injured, is finally coming to play. Hooker in the back end, this linebacker who they took in the third, fourth round from South Carolina State. Their moves are finally coming together. So, for me, it's about if they want to win. And I feel like they signed Le'Veon Bell, that shows me that they want to win. So they made it to the playoffs. Eagles won, so they're in the playoffs because the Vikings beat Minnesota. Do I think Kirk Cousins is the quarterback for Minnesota? He has to be. He has to be. Like, they decided to pay him $80 million, fully guaranteed. They have to find a way to make that work. He has 2 Pro Bowl, All-Pro type receivers on the outside. 2 top, they're both top 15 for sure. They have to find a way to make that work. I couldn't tell you the reason why I feel like it didn't work. They have a Pro Bowler on each level of their defense. Their offensive line is definitely sketchy at times. But if you going into the season told me that they were going to miss the playoffs and Chicago was going to win the division, I'd have laughed in your face. But Chicago's defense came together. Chicago's defense led them to a championship. Their offense being young, they're finally getting it together. I love the way Chicago is playing right now. If you ask me right now who I would want to see in the Super Bowl, I would give you 2 teams. I would give you Chicago, and I'll give you the Chiefs. That'll be my Super Bowl I want, but we got to get there first. Chiefs beat the Raiders. Patriots blew out the Jets. All stuff we knew was going to happen. But the main game that we were looking forward to, which will turn into my final topic of the day, Steelers beat the Bengals. That game was way too close for my liking. First issue. But that's not the problem. Problem is the Steelers staying on the field to watch the Browns choke up that game. This is something Baker Mayfield is going to build off in his career. He's going to use this to catapult them into next season. He's the type of player that's he needs something to feed off each game, each year. And the rivalry, it's a good rivalry because they've been knowing each other. They were both at 2 Heisman endings, so I'm sure they've kept in contact. Now they're in the same division. I'd love to see how that works out. But 3 picks, unacceptable. Losing that game the way he did, unacceptable. And I wouldn't say something has to change, but I need to see more growth in him. He broke the rookie passing touchdown record. Congratulations to him. I thank him for 7 victories because he was 0-16 last year. So do I think he should win the Rookie of the Year? It's hard to not get enamored with Saquon Barkley, but I keep jumping from topics. I'm going to focus on this game. This game, I love the Ravens offensive coordinator. They do a lot of talking within the NFL of downplaying the read option offense, a running quarterback, a spread quarterback. They didn't believe he would be able to win. They told him he needed to go play receiver. And all he did was go 7-1 in the 8 games he started. All he did was help this team go to the playoffs. Yes, he has probably the best defense or one of the best defense in the best defense or one of the best defense in the NFL. But that doesn't matter to me. What matters is he's winning games the way he wants to. This OC is drawing up plays where the running back is running through holes this wide. And I love every minute of it. It's a motion here, it's a motion there, and we're going to run inside zone in the middle, and your people just going to fly because they see Lamar Jackson with the ball. And then when he finally keeps it, he's fast enough to outrun your starting safety. And I think he's a lot stronger than people give him credit for. It was a time in that game where Jabril Peppers missed that sack, and I guess he thought because he was so skinny, he was just going to hold on to him and bring him down. That's not how it happens. Jabril Peppers also had a key penalty in that game on a 3rd down. But it's just for the offense has to produce. Baker Mayfield can't throw that pick there. Perriman, shout out to Perriman. He redeemed himself. He went back, got a touchdown. It was a long one. Baker, you could just see the promise in Baker. As long as he steadily rises, the future for this organization is so bright. Who do I want to get the job? I love Greg Williams. I love Freddie Kitchens. As long as whoever comes in keeps them in DC and OC, we straight. Because I love the standard that Greg Williams holds these people to. Our defense is young. So for the fact that he can hold them to a disciplined standard to make them believe that they're supposed to do this thing a certain way, I love it. Freddie Kitchens is smart. He's going to let the offense run. People forget that Nick Chubb was a Heisman candidate, that he did break so many records at Georgia. I, for one, forgot. I thought he was done, but I didn't understand that the second year after your knee surgery is always 10 times better than the first year. And he had 1,000 yards at Georgia. But I'm so excited about next season already, and it's January 2nd. We're not going to the playoffs. We still got to get through this year. But us losing that game not only affected us, but it affected Pittsburgh. Now, what did that do for Pittsburgh? When you lose, everything is magnified. The relationship between Big Ben and Antonio, questionable. I'm not in the locker room. I don't know. But I know the locker room do some trash things. One thing, you never supposed to... If I don't play, my people can't be mad at me. they got to be mad at my coach. Even if it's my fault, it's out of my hands. Le'Veon felt like he wasn't paid. His teammates took that out on him. They ran through his locker and they got everything that they deserved. Now, the issue between the struggle of power between Antonio and Big Ben. You created this monster, Ben. You throw him the ball 20 times. You made him into this thing he is. Yes, he's supremely talented. Yes, I think he's the best receiver in the league. Do I think it matters to him whether they win or lose? No. But I've never felt that a receiver felt like that. No receiver I've felt with was just the best teammate ever. They're not focused on that. They focused on, I'm going to get mine. If we win, we win. If we lose, hey, he couldn't throw me the ball. It was the offensive line fault. We didn't run that day, so I was triple covered. They always got an excuse. That's how I felt. I don't look for leadership out of a receiver. That's not what I'm here for. They're going to make excuses. They're going to cry about not getting the ball. They're too emotional. But I'm never going to make my team about a receiver. Big Ben did that. You feed me 20 targets a game, then now all of a sudden you get a new weapon. You want to start throwing him the ball? No. You only throw him the ball when he open. You don't throw him jump balls. Them my balls. Pause. Them is my catches. You taking targets out of my area. I don't care who he is. I don't care if I like him, which he probably loves Juju. Juju has an emphatic personality where everyone loves it. But who cares? I want my 10 catches. I want my 150 yards. I want my 2 touchdowns. And however you got to give me the ball, make it happen. I don't care if we win. I don't care if we go 0-16. If I got 100 catches, 10 plus touchdowns, 1,000 plus yards, I'm good. Because I'm going to keep getting my money. You're going to have to keep paying me. And no matter what, you created this. Big Ben, you created this. When they let you get away with your little charge, you created this. When they allow you to throw people under the bus, you created this. So don't look for help when you don't make the playoffs because you set yourself up for this. You allow your teammates, as the quarterback, to ransack Le'Veon Bell's locker. You allowed your teammates to do whatever they want to do. You didn't set the standard. No matter if it's the head coach. I don't care what my head coach says. If one of my teammates on my offensive line, on my offense, tells me not to do something, I'm going to take his word because I play with him. I play for him. That's the problem in the league. It's a lot of I. You can't be mad at the position where I is most important. He's being I. Who cares? You don't want to give me the ball? I don't want to talk to you. You don't want to give me the ball? I'm going to throw the ball at you. This is about me. He got him there. He felt like he worked there. He the one that couldn't play at FSU. He the one that went to Central Michigan and made it this far. He the one that got picked in the 5th round, and now he's considered the best player in the league. And Ryan Clark got to stop hating, bro. I just feel like that's things he said about him. That's fine. You can have your opinion. It's nothing wrong with having your opinion, but the way he says it and the way he acts like he didn't, like Antonio didn't deserve what he's getting, he does. It's a different game. In 2012 when Ryan Clark was playing, Facebook didn't have live. Facebook didn't have live? What is he mad for? It's a different game. But this is Big Ben's fault. He wants everything to go his way. He's the one that complains about Tomlin in the public. He's the one that starts this. So when your quarterback doesn't show a standard of being accountable, nobody's going to want to be accountable. And if I'm not holding my quarterback accountable, I'm really not going to hold my receiver accountable. It don't matter. Why are you mad at him for being who he was? You knew he was like this when he was on that rookie contract. I'm sure he was talking cash money every day on that rookie contract that he's doing right now. And I'm sure he was robbing people up just like he was then. Because if you think about it, in 2012, that's before he really went off. So you should know where he's at, bro. Like, this Big Ben fault. It's Big Ben fault they ain't make it to the playoffs. It's Big Ben fault for not setting the standard. It's Big Ben fault that Le'Veon gone. That if Antonio leave, Antonio's gone. Bill Cowher. All of that. I blame Ben. And then, we had our little NBA news. It's still December. Nobody cares about it right now. Well, January. Happy New Year. Thank y'all for watching. Send this out to y'all people. Subscribe, like. Have a good day.